It seems to me we're doubling up on our bonding here. Do we just need a bid bond and a performance bond?
That's what we're really asking for, yes.
Okay.
Any form that's available, it does not have to be an AIA form for the bond to be printed on.
Licensing, do we need to be licensed by the state, by the county, by the community?
The city of Springfield has said that a building permit as such is not required for the exhibition work. The city does have a licensing requirement, but they're saying that you do not need to have like a general contractor's license to assemble this, because this is not a building. This is an exhibition to go into a building. We just caution that on the electrical work, an electrical contractor is going to have to do electrical work, and you're going to have to work that out with the electrical contractor as to their own licensing requirements.
But with state and federal money, there's no other licensing that's required.
This is a county project.
Jeff has a question again. What time element are we talking about if this is extended? I think you mentioned 4 additional weeks.
That's what we're trying to determine. We have legal constraints here that we have to operate from. So maybe somebody out here that read this and said, I can't make it, and they didn't come. So I have to always think about, what about that person beyond these walls, to an extent, who didn't make it because he read something in a legal ad. So I have to look at that, along with the prosecutor, and say, now, if there is consensus of opinion here, which there seems to be, how much longer are you looking at? So if it was due to the 17th, how much more time do you need? I'm listening for some ideas.
I would say 4 weeks.
4 weeks past that?
By the end of the month. From like today, 4 weeks from today.
Okay, so the end of March then.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Jeff, what are your options? You call those people that were invited, or you don't know who saw what?
Everybody's here is here. You're all here as qualified bidders now. You got an authority signed up. Anyone who didn't sign up isn't a qualified bidder because they're not here. But they may have said, I read it, I read a legal ad, and I knew I couldn't make it. Now you're changing it. So we have to probably go back out and do a legal ad again. We have to revise the legal ad, as far as I know, unless the prosecutor tells me different. I don't know if we have to have another one of these meetings. That's what gets interesting. I'm looking at Steve back here. He has some ideas also. These things, and I understand the problem, but we have our constraints on the county side, because you have to go through lockstep, like the Ohio Revised Code, where someone says you didn't do it right, you can't do that, and we end up with a big run. So we're trying to accommodate thought, keep the project on schedule, keep me legal.
Yeah, all we'll do on that is we're going to change the schedule a little bit here. Will, with Steve, with maybe the county prosecutor, Jeff, myself, we'll try to get you some information today on that. We'll do that research while everybody's having lunch, etc. We've got a little change. Okay, what we went too fast as we thought. So, but they can't quite accommodate us for lunch just yet. So I wonder, can we go ahead and do we need some of the audio-visual? Yep. And then just shorten up the afternoon, and that'll give you more time to look at the artifacts and the building, and maybe get you out a little earlier. So if you bear with us for a few minutes, we'll start in on this, and then we'll take a break for lunch at 12:30, and then come back, wrap up this, and go on.
Well, I think what we're going to do right now is have Bert come up here, Bert Kummerow, who wrote the audio tour and is writing the exhibition catalog, and is also a contractor for us to do the pre-production work on the second floor. And he can give you an overview of each of those as special projects.
Thank you.
I've been working with the historical society for about 2.5 years, and we've been collecting information for these various types of exhibits. And I wanted you to take a look at the special instructions to bidders. We'll go to C, item 2, which is the second floor galleries. Just wanted to go over very quickly the concepts we have in mind for these videos. Number one, we have a video disc, which is fairly straightforward. It's going to run continuously in the service to the Nation Gallery. And starting, I guess it was the end of last year. Actually, it's been going on, I guess, longer than that. We've been collecting the photos of veterans from the county. Every family that has a veteran they wanted to remember has been sending in photographs and information on that veteran. And this will be a continuous loop going with whatever we have at the time that we produce.
I'm pointing to where that happens. It's in the military gallery, and there's a small screen back here, and it just rolls.
This is a simple matter of transferring these photos to a video disc that will run continuously. We will also have a kiosk there that will people will be able to sign up and eventually, hopefully, donate more photos, and we can update that as years go by. Number two are some silent videos, and this is the result of the attempt that Bill and David described of showing the artifacts that are in the exhibit halls in action. And there are a couple of variables here that we need to consider as we prepare for these videos. They're silent videos. They will be running continuously on monitors next to the artifacts themselves. And obviously, one of the factors is the availability of the restored artifacts, and we can develop that schedule very quickly based on what we're doing here. And then also the time of the year, because some of these are agricultural-related artifacts when the artifact is best shown in action, and so we have to consider that as well. We have a very good situation here because nearby, near Dayton, is the Carriage Hill Museum, which is a living history farm dates to the latter part of the 19th century. Volunteers there at that site are actually restoring the Champion Reaper, which is one of the premier items associated with the agricultural implements. And we can actually work with them very closely to show these various artifacts being used. And that will make it convenient because it's close by, and we'll be able to schedule probably blocks of time that we can shoot these videos. We need people in costume, but we can do that locally as well. Finally, the more complicated production upstairs is the Frontier Theater. That really is designed to show the biggest battle of the Revolution fought west of the Appalachian Mountains. George Rogers Clark, a Revolutionary War hero, came up here and attacked Shawnee Village. And the battlefield is about 3 or 4 miles from here. The idea is to follow the National Park Service Civil War, Revolutionary War battlefield style exhibit to amplify the static exhibits that are around the Frontier Gallery. And that Frontier Theater is really designed both as a multimedia presentation area, that's the way it will operate most of the time, to amplify the static exhibits, and then also as a gathering area for educational presentations to schools and other groups that come through. The video itself would be worked in conjunction with a fiber optics relief map. So you have a traditional video that would introduce the subject, and you would have this fiber optics map to describe the battle as it unfolded on the terrain map, and then you would end with the video as well. So this would have to be coordinated together. Now, we go on to a couple of other elements I'm working on. Number one is the audio tour. As Bill described, this is a very, very important part of sort of giving more information to the people who really want to get more information on the exhibits, and also to dramatize the events that are associated with the artifacts and the cases. In consultation with some national audio tour production houses, and as the exhibit design unfolded, we decided that the present script that I created in the middle of last year needs further editing into a very specific set of 40, 90-second spots. So that has to be done just to finish off what's there. All the information is there. This is an ambitious script because it has dramatic recreations, dramatic readings, sound effects, and music from over a 200-year period. So pre-production is critical here to collect these elements along with the rights to use some of them if we need to do that to make the production of the tape as efficient and as quick as possible. So many of these elements are already available locally with the assistance of the Clark County Historical Society. Finally, we have the exhibition catalog. I have a couple of examples in the back that you can take a look at. Many of you, I'm sure, have been associated with the production of these kind of catalogs, maybe not directly, but this is another way, of course, to give much more information to the interested visitor. And you have a description in your in F in the instructions to bidders that describes the catalog we have in mind. I've already begun to work on this concept, and we have a couple of elements in it that aren't in those books in the back that I wanted to be sure you understood. They will follow the layout of the exhibits, these parts of the exhibit catalog. There will be an introductory section emphasizing in particular the history of the city building, which has become the Heritage Center, because this particular building is associated with the last 110 years of the history of the city and the county. Then you go directly into the National Gallery, which has already been described as the road of Clark County history and also the road of a lot of U.S. history as well, followed by sections devoted to the other three galleries. We will intersperse artifact photos throughout, color photos as well. We don't want to have an element of color photos in the center if we can avoid it. We would prefer to have and I'm working on that right now with the photographer. We're going to have to do more photography, obviously, as the artifacts become available. But we're working now on producing color photographs, 4-color photographs of all the artifacts, so that any artifact can be used as a color photograph, although many of them will be black and white. You can see here we have an idea of using 100 illustrations in 4-color and 200 in black and white interspersed through the entire document. Also, the idea of using sidebars, and this is very important to me as well. So I'm going to leave my cards on the back table. Anybody who wants to contact me to get more information, and as we prepare the bids, I just need to give me a call. Thank you very much. Yeah, any questions?
I want to, Bill mentioned this to me, I want to remind everybody too of what I said earlier today about a list that we want to fax to you of people that we have worked with in the past. They include historic consultants, AV pre-production people, artists. What else do we have on there?
Well, mannequin makers.
The mannequin makers and everything else with their phone numbers and their fax numbers. And that's going to be faxed to you tomorrow afternoon, and that can be used to help you in terms of, and a lot of these people have been talking to us about this exhibit, so they're already forewarned that you may be calling them, and that might help to some degree.
This business about the catalog, it says that we're to submit a bid on the catalog, and then it says a consultant shall be contracted by the Clark County Historical Society. Is that
just met the consultant right there?
So he's the person that will do the research, find the photographs, get the rights, and prepare all the
That
copies.
is his job, yes. Plus he'll be available to talk to the designer. That might be okay. Any other questions? Yes.
How will all the source material be received? I mean, is it going to be, will everything be output ready? Is it going to be on disk? Is it going to be...
Are you talking about graphic material?
Well, graphic material and text, how much...
Oh, for the catalog, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the exhibits.
That probably ties into the designer. You know, the designer and Bert, working together, they're getting the stuff, and then he designs it, and I would think he'd scan it and actually lay the copy out, and so it would come as a disc. In that sense, more like a little modern convention.
Any other questions? Bill, if you come up here, I'd like to go through just a second a couple of these special packages since we're still laying out lunch. The most important part of the day. Right after lunch, then, it looks as if we're ahead of schedule so we can get over to the building and walk through the building. And we'll use maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes before lunch, and they come up and talk to you right in front of the exhibit model and everything. I want to mention in your special packages also under mannequins, we have talked about the types of mannequins. On page 2, it lists the different mannequins that we're talking about. We do have some non-live casts on both floors. We have, in that list that we're sending you, we recommend a firm that can provide the non-live casts. There's only 3 of them in the whole.
When we prepared these packages to be contracted separately, we had already contacted various artists and mannequin makers and things, AV people that we thought we'd like to work with. And then, as you heard, it was put back into the bid package for reasons of funding of it. So those names are going to be provided to you, and you can use them or you can choose not to. I think that the thing is that we ask you to pay particular attention to, though, is where we call for a life cast mannequin. Does anybody not understand what a life cast mannequin is? Okay. And I've got a point this key.
What life figure would be cast?
What life figure would you cast?
Yeah, I think that's
The way they cast life cast mannequins is that you essentially cast somebody as if you were going to do a role in a film. And you say, I want somebody that's 5'6", and I want them to be about 140 pounds, and I want them to have a mustache, and they literally cast, they make a mold of that person. And then the uniform or the clothing or whatever you've got fits that mannequin so they don't look like it's a J.C. Penney's store window, or it doesn't look like one of these incredibly hokey wax museums. The question is, that's why we're using life cast.
My comment is, if you got your favorite uncles with mustaches and
right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, we're fitting existing. This is, if you remember, I was talking about the military section where we got. There's actually 3 First World War soldiers. We got all their complete stuff. One was a photographer in aviation. One was a black soldier. One was a white soldier. We've got their stuff. So we want a life cast mannequin that's going to fit that stuff the way it's supposed to fit. Okay? So it's not a question we're making reproductions and you can fit it on any old figure you want. That's not the case.
I might mention that we have almost all the clothing in the collections, and Virginia will be showing you some of that today. What we don't have, the staff is going to buy some shoes and some shirts. And
Yeah, I mean, you're not responsible for getting the costume. Yes.
You're putting artifacts on the cast from life figures?
Yes.
How do you get the figures into the artifacts? You have to cut the artifacts up to do that.
No, the life cast people don't.
Okay.
The ones we've worked with have been able to put them on.
Would the life cast need to resemble historical figures?
No, not. I mean, it's nobody that you'd recognize. Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about George Washington or something like that. No.
Are there no other questions about the mannequins? We've got major artist illustrations. I think Bill has pretty well talked about the various illustrations. The person who's doing the Battle of Piqua painting for that movable panel, we're contracting with separate from the bid operation. That's John Buxton. He's in the back. I mentioned that one of the examples of his work is in the back. We mentioned that list that we referred to. There's a painting of George Washington Clark in that list, and we're basically have John Buxton on that list because he is a historic artist. I don't think there's anything else under major artist illustrations. If you have any questions about that. The pre-production services for the first floor are in the bids. We had to because of the Ohio Department of Transportation grant. However, on the second floor, we have contracted Bert Kummerow to do all the pre-production services. On the first floor, there are basically 2 short films. One is nothing more than copying an existing film over to a disc, and then a major production. Have you talked about that in the Checkers Theater?
Just very briefly.
You might want to mention that.
There are 2 fairly ambitious AV portions to this. One of them is that you've heard already is about the Battle of Piqua and how that's going to work. The other one is the AV program that's on the first floor in this theater, which is basically a continuing disc with narration. And those will utilize still photographs and motion picture, dealing with people who played and starred in Springfield. And the putting together of that material and the gathering it together is the responsibility of the AV people who do it. That has not been done. Various sources have said there's film of this here, there's stills here, but the actual pulling it together has not happened. So that's part of this package of putting that production together. And we're talking about a production that's probably going to run somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes.
So does that indicate that there's some footage to be shot custom for this?
No. Well, custom from the standpoint of the narrator. In other words, if you get Jonathan Winters, if that's what everybody's talking about, if I would assume that Winters is going to appear on camera, if you will, and that would have to be shot. But the other stuff is historic footage and stills grouped together in a meaningful sequence that you can sit down and watch. Does that answer what you put your head in mind? No, you've got the package that calls for the audiovisual hardware, the kinds of equipment we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know what else to comment on that. It's all pretty well spelled out. Yeah.
Of course, we're going to be around all day to answer questions. Now, before we break then and give you an opportunity to talk to the designers, Virginia, if you have any questions to her or any of us before lunch and look at the models. There are two other things I want to hand out. This is another handout that basically says, and we discussed this yesterday and felt that it needed to be a part of the bid, that the fabricator in picking up the artifacts from the staging facility will be responsible basically for the transport of those packaging and transport of those artifacts to their facility. And we'll have to work very closely in signing those things out with Virginia. And then they'll be responsible for getting that stuff over to the Heritage Center. So this is a note that basically says that. That'll be part of the bid addenda.
Let me also comment that because we're trying to record all the comments and have everybody hear the answers and the questions, a lot of different groups talking about and asking questions is probably not the best thing to facilitate that. So as we gather and there are questions, I'll probably repeat the question and try to get your answer to you so that it is recorded.
Okay, the second handout, I'm just going to go ahead and hand these out right now, Virginia. This is just basic information that will help you. These are the dimensions of all the signs to be hung and some basic instructions as to what has to be done to the signs. There's also a list that Virginia will be talking about of items that are at the conservators already. And finally, some of the objects requiring special fabrication, like the ladder, the lamplighter's ladder, and the approaches to the covered bridge, and things of that nature. So we're going to pass these out now.
Well, that's being passed out. Let me just review a couple things. Jeff Johnson is out now, and we'll be trying to secure an answer for you about the extension or revision of the bid submission day. And we will we'll communicate that today if we have an answer, and if not, we will be getting it out with addendum just as quickly as we can. Your points are well taken, and if we can't comply, we will certainly try to do so. The other point I raised earlier in the meeting, which may now have more meaning, was the fact that I mentioned to you that in the bid documents it talks about a 210-day performance period from the time we execute. You actually receive a contract from the county for the bid. You have 210 days to produce that product. We would agree by contract that's in the bid that 70 days prior to that end date, you would have access to the building. Again, those dates are critical. If they're not realistic in your estimation, I would like to hear that from you. Because if in fact we make a revision, we want to make all the revisions in one addendum to get them out to everybody. So if that's not a realistic date, please verbally or in writing communicate that to me. Rather than anybody else, you just get that back to me, and then we'll take that under advisement and respond to you. So those are the kind of two issues, and we'll try to communicate at least on the extension date before you leave today. If not, you will receive an answer hopefully no later tomorrow.
Okay, now we're going to take the next 15-20 minutes. We'll just be here for individual questions, comments, and things of that nature. Where is the lunch being served at, ladies?
The Demit room.
The Demit room, which is right down the hall. If you haven't signed up for it, the wonderful buffet lunch. These ladies will take care of that. And when we get back from lunch, we will take a tour of the building across the street. There it is. Not for another 15-20 minutes. So we'll be up here to answer any comments or take any comments or questions. So the next 15-20 minutes is your own. I will announce when lunch is ready. Thank you.
That's right.
I'm done.
How you doing there, Don? I won't pay how much you did.
Artifact schedules. The last handout I passed around.
The question has been raised, are the carpets, is the carpet part of the exhibit fabricator's job? And I believe, if Steve Sharp is here, and Dave, isn't the carpet installation on the first and second floor the job of the general contractor?
Yeah.
Okay, the answer
Now,
is...
I tell you, Dave, that we've only recently accepted a credit to eliminate carpeting being located under any exhibits.
Yeah.
So while the exhibit can be made movable, there'll be a blank hole in the floor for where it's supposed to go when you're moving it around.
They originally estimated all, like, okay, it's this long, this big, and it did square footage, and then we said, it's not a real good idea to put carpet under exhibits. It might make you use larger casters so you can get over whatever little bump there is when you go to move it.
With roofs being over top of here and here, that's sprinklers.
What about sprinklers?
Do we have to worry about any fire codes?
Dave, you probably ought to answer some of these architectural things.
The building is fully fire suppressed, so no, the answer is you don't have to worry about anything.
Even putting the ceiling over covering off the access to those?
That one I may have to address separately. I'm not sure. I think we pretty much said this is being treated as, well, from a code standpoint, as furnishings or something to that effect. So it may or may not apply, I would think.
So
we
are there,
will look into
are
it.
there sprinklers beneath this ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
That's all done.
Right, but
I mean,
you're
it will
putting
be.
caps over the top of your...
You'll see that there's a balcony, the remains of a balcony right here.
Which is the
That's why this.
Yeah, the underside of this surface is sloped.
We're doing this ceiling. Yes. So this area in here
I'll have to ask the question of our code official.
and down there.
On the theater on the other side.
That's probably a change, and they'll want to run some pressure heads in there.
Because it constitutes floor area not being protected with the sprinkler system.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we had that with trade shows.
Yeah, if you
And they're real straight.
Very
Yeah,
strict.
they don't smile at that at all.
I'll ask the question. That's a good question.
Anybody got any questions while we're looking at this
Your house also, I have to pipe over to that.
to get inside of the little
I mean,
house?
if fire starts there, you want to coverage.
Okay.
Very interesting. How do you
Yeah.
sprinkle something free?
Or you redesign it so it's just
Let me
slabs
mention
and
something
you
else
leave
real
open.
quick. I just thought about this. All of the graphics, and when I say all, I mean, if we're using 300 graphics, 297 of them are from the Historical Society's own collection. So it's not a question of going out and getting permission to use a lot of this stuff.
The very few pieces that are outside, we've already gotten permission to use. So you all are not responsible for doing that. We're going to turn over the whole graphic package to you all.
But it's transparent, it's photographs, not digital.
This large box at the top, they'll be fabricated by the exhibit fabricator.
But there's one existing. Right?
There's one existing, let's say that one right there, and this one on this side. Back side, you don't have anything. Back side over here, you don't have anything. Back and front over here, you have to make it.
So you're duplicating the frame and the stained glass, both.
You'll duplicate the one artifact, which is a boxed-in stained glass. How deep is that thing?
It's probably about that deep.
Okay,
in
so
the box in front of it.
so I've doubled that.
Yeah.
You'll have to make another one,
It's backlit. It's a backlit window that was in a door from the office.
And I've drawn all this up. It's in the plans.
Yeah, they were good detail.
You saw it? Okay, good.
The whole exhibit was good detail.
Thank you.
If you do caster these, you'll probably want to go ahead and lay carpet throughout.
Well, that's a
It's common.
Dave. We probably ought to. Dave. Excuse me. Just 1 second. The comment is, it might be wiser to go ahead and carpet the whole area since we're going to have to caster things and move things over an irregular surface if it's not. Were you planning to use that credit somewhere, huh, Mindy?
It's already been spent. We did go by your plan and define more or less the edge of where an exhibit would stop, in which case they put kind of an extension of 4 to 6 inches underneath the front edge.
Okay.
But we're only talking the thickness of the carpet itself, nothing subflooring wise.
It might be a matter of a sill, like at a door, where the carpet, you have plain floor and you put carpet.
They'll make carpet transition strips where you go from a resilient to a carpet
Okay,
floor.
that answers the question, I guess.
Just so
Yeah.
you don't have to
It'll be a little
Right,
extra.
You'll run the risk of fraying it out.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the area that
Excuse me. Yeah, and you'll see that today. They've already done all the excavation, the opening in the building for the freight elevator.
We're thinking in terms of anything
Here's
really big,
Floor
like the car. We'll probably have to do temporary little planks or something to get it over the stairs, and then after that,
this is about 18 inches to 2 feet
There
from here to
too.
here. That change of, yeah, you probably do this like you.
probably the last time you'll ever truck in there. The car and all our cars, one is drained of any fluids. It's just going to be all hand pushed.
You'll be blown away by this automobile. And,
I don't doubt.
see, this is the advertisement that goes with that car.
Okay.
And the guy in town, he lived here. And, it's just phenomenal. And there's a club. It's a Lagonda. And they go downtown here, and there's a Lagonda club. And he goes to Europe all the
I wanted to
time.
remind everybody to make sure
It's a grand age.
sometime today that you go up to the registration table and leave your fax number there so that we can
Just get touched upon at all.
Yes, we talked about that. The fact that it's going to be motorized and that in its turning, it works. See that shaft that I did inside? The shaft will move up and down, but it's way down on the first floor. It will be hooked up to a Mass Foods cast iron pump. It's about like this.
But this piece will be fabricated. What this thing is dodging is a V-shaped stair.
Right.
Trying to come down through the
We've had a fun time fitting that and modeling it and everything else, but
fabrication will be the tricky part.
yeah, he's going to have to build it up to a certain point.
You won't be building us in whole.
The fabricator has been involved right from the beginning. One day he came. It was amazing. We were here. We happened to be up here. And he comes in. He says, I got all this stuff in the truck. And he had all these blades. That's a print from a historic print. So that's what those crazy things look like. But they're super light. Had them in the back of a pickup truck. Took them out.
You said this is going to be supplied to us for us to cut and weld?
Those, we have, Virginia, she's still here. We've tagged all that stuff.
Okay.
So that you know, I mean, it's big, heavy pieces of real outdoor fencing. And then these posts, which I've tried to model, are there. And so you got to tack weld it to get it together.
But
you have, it's already existing.
Yeah, the fences, I may have to cut a little bit off and add something.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
But it's not a lot of modification. That's the engine to one of these things sitting there. It's on its own stand. I don't think you have a drawing for that. I'm not sure, for the motor stand.
I remember seeing one of the comments about using blacktop on one of the, I remember on one of the blueprints. Has that been?
That's on the downstairs.
Actual blacktop?
Oh, no.
We use okay, I'm going to say, because this specifies blacktop. We've got a rubber road.
We need to have you tell us what you would recommend. I mean, I've never done fake blacktop, because people will walk on it, they'll have to clean it, that sort of thing.
We've got a material that we use for that.
Yeah, okay.
It's a rubber. And it's
kind of like we use on running tracks, stuff like that.
Yeah, somewhat. We use mop and glue on all the time.
But we don't especially want seams.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably
going to be dependent on how big it is.
It's a plywood surface that's fairly thick, a couple of layers, and it probably should be troweled out and smooth, or however you put, whatever the material is that you've got.
Okay.
Again, going back to this crazy thing, there's more of the fencing, and that's all been tagged, and you'll see that in the collection. And the fabrication of this arch and so forth is done with angle iron. I just drew it all up with angle because I figured you can roll it to those curves. If it did square tubing, we'd probably get kinks, and it wouldn't look kind of period-like.
Okay.
Question?
Talking about the large one.
I got to repeat your question loud. All this goes into the camera.
Was the house one of the exhibits you was talking about putting on casters so it could move?
No, you guys were talking about.
I think it was these other things.
These 6 here.
Right, to get by there. No, I would say no. No, the house does not go on casters, because that'll be pretty amazing.
Yeah, because you've got, it looks like you have your clearance there.
That's these are 6-foot figures in here, so that's probably 7-8 feet across there.
This is movable though. Would have to be.
This would have to be in order to get through this piece and the piece of game. I mean, it's not going to happen often, but it's going to happen.
All the large artifacts and what have you, fabricators are going to be handling those and moving them.
Let me have a question again.
All the artifacts like the wagons, the trucks, and everything, we're going to move those and we're going to put them in place.
I'm not quite sure. In all cases,
that's what that last handout was that they gave us.
That there was a bit about you're going and picking up the stuff.
And bringing them.
Right. Trying to think through the platform under that. You know, what would you do? Would you want to build the platform and get the car in place and then build the rest of it? And that's certainly one. I can probably think up 2 or 3 different ways. Would you want to put the car on jacks? I mean, that's just a cutout of the car. It physically takes some space. Put it up on the screw jack so that, to hold it at its axles, and then build a platform around it. That's another way.
It's always better to do more off-site than on-site.
Yeah, I know you're working in your own environment in your shop, and I've always seen that. But the question was, are they responsible for moving that cart in place, moving this car in place? Yeah, I think the answer is...
Actually picking up from wherever they're at now.
Yeah, it's about a couple miles from here.
Yeah, so everything's close to here.
You can drive it over, you can have it.
Yeah.
We had fun. We thought, why don't we have a parade? I mean, this town will never see these vehicles. Drive them over here. It's a nice, clear day.
That's what we were saying. Get all the big stuff. Have a parade, have it all over. You can have John where he's driving.
This guy drove this in. Yeah. It's just magnificent all over. And we got the manual book. I mean, that's just a blow up.
Everybody would, time to eat, right, Barb? 2 minutes? 5 minutes? Getting hungry.
You don't have a here. You don't have it. You're picking up. Hear me? Again, trying to have everybody hear the same comments. The question came up about whether the exhibit fabricators would be responsible for moving the various vehicles out of here, back wherever they do, to properly prepare them for the exhibit. the Conestoga wagon is probably the one that has some dubious nature about who will handle it and how. And I'm going to have Virginia tell you about that.
Right now, the Conestoga wagon is at conservators in New Jersey, and we still are not sure about the timetable. This is probably where we're going to need to coordinate with you. It's been there since July. It'll probably be July or early August before that Conestoga wagon is ready to be returned. Now, we can talk about actually getting it in, putting into the building. The concern, as far as the conservators are concerned, and us as Historical Society, is that they are fabricating special supports for the cover so that the existing hoops are not compressed by the new cover that we're going to put on the Conestoga wagon. So they need to be involved in the installation process. So whoever is a successful bidder, I'm going to have to work with you, and we'll have to work with the Conservation Laboratory to make sure that we can get everything scheduled. So we're kind of laughing. It's kind of a definite maybe that we are going to have that one moved. Right, and the other conservator that we'll be working with is working on our tent. She will also be involved in the installation process because the Civil War tent is very rare, and she's building special supports so that the tent can be supported, but the supports are kind of hidden. So those are the two, right, those are the two that we know so far will be involved in the installation process. So we will need some coordination with your schedule and both of these conservation laboratories. Okay?
Beautiful.
Great.
8 months of my life.
We've got Children's Museum and Natural History Museum.
We'll be going to the warehouse where all this stuff is this afternoon. And you can take a look at the signs and the various elements of this.
And you get a feel.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, what you're doing is, if you take artifacts to your place to mount them and build the cases and whatever, you're going to be responsible for bringing them from your place back to the building for installation. Or if you want to leave, let's say that car with the warehouse, you'll be responsible for taking it from the warehouse down to this site to install it. Does that make everybody understand what we're talking about?
Walls come apart. Hi.
Down the hall, got the doors to the left, right at the end of the hall is where the lunch is. If you want, we decided to go and have everybody.
One of the architects and one of the design team will go with each group. We do have hard hats. Hard hats are mandatory on site. And hard hats are mandatory on site, so we will distribute them at that time over at the site and take a tour. We would ask that you come back here after you're completed the tour, and we'll get back together and you'll pick up your gear at that point, and we will then go out to, we'll be leaving this site, we'll go out to the staging facility for the Historical Society and allow you to take a look at the artifacts and walk through and get a feel for the size and the condition and all those questions out there. And obviously you'll be free to go from there. Some of you will be flying out or leaving Dayton, just a pretty easy trip to the east and to the west, and Columbus to the east. So we won't be coming, we'll come back here after the tour of the building, get all of our equipment and gear, and go out to the facility, and from there you will depart. Now, as to the question that was raised earlier this morning, that which seemed to be a consensus of the group, and it may not be everybody, and it's always difficult in one of these situations when you make a change, but it did appear to be the consensus that the timetable that we had allocated for the submission of the bids was probably going to penalize us financially, but also was going to cause difficulty in everybody preparing their proper bid. We have talked to the county, he's talked to the county prosecutor. We will extend, and not as much as you requested, but we can extend the date 2 weeks to the filing date, March 31st. And you will get a written addendum on this, but I'm just giving you a heads up. March 31st, same time, same place, 9:30 a.m. sharp at the county address, which is in your bid package. By extending it 2 weeks, we hope that, one, we think we can get the proper number of advertisements in that are required by the bidding controlling agencies, and we give you an extra 2 weeks. It's not as much as I think someone requested here 4, but it's the best we can do without disrupting the whole package. We will be advertising on the 10th, 17th, 24th. We will open bids on the 31st. Now, in order to hold everybody to the same standard, that is, you people have made the attempt to come here today. We said it was a mandatory bid, pre-bid meeting. You have made that effort. You've come here and you've sat through all these lectures, etc. We're going to hold everyone else who wishes to come to the table in a bid submission to the same standard. What we're going to do is on the 16th of this month, March 16th at 10 a.m. out at the facility, we will require anyone else who wishes to submit a bid to come out. They will be required to sit through the tape. They will be required to come down and tour the building, and they will be required to go out and tour the facility to look at the artifacts. So it will be the identical standard, except it won't be in person, and they won't have the advantage of some of the give and take that maybe we've had here today. But they will have to come through, listen to the tape in its entirety, and that will be 10 a.m. on the 16th of March, and it will be held out at the facility where you will be going this afternoon. We hope that that meets with everyone's approval. Obviously, some may feel that we're changing the ballgame. There will be a legal advertisement. There will be a revised submission date, and we will require them to go through the same hoops that you people have today, and we do understand that. There will be no exception. Now, along that line, it is extremely important that you sign in, or have signed in. If you came in, if you're minutes late, whatever. Carol, if you just raise your hand. If you have not signed that yellow sheet that we passed around today, your presence will not be recognized as being here today. Okay? So if you've signed in, fine. We have that list. And we will hold those people who are on that list. They will be given credit for it, and anyone else will have to go through the 16th. All right, now, that is where it stands today. You will receive an addendum on that. We do have to review that one review agency yet, but I think this is going to be advertised 3 times in the revised date that we will be satisfactory to them. Okay, any questions on that?
We have one thing we want to add. I probably should use the mic. In discussions over the model just before we went to lunch, someone asked the question about what sort of photo techniques are we talking here? Electronic or conventional? And we pretty much settled, Bill and I did, that what we want is regular photo prints, color photo prints, even for the large stuff. So that will affect your bidding. Thank you.
All right, before we go over, any other questions regarding the revised date or anything related that we've talked about so far that you've had a chance to talk about, think about? Yes, sir?
I have other questions here. Budget. Is there a budget or budget range that you're able to offer?
That was you're my third or fourth person I've been informed that have asked about that. I really have to tell you that I would have to consult. I'm not sure what I can or cannot say on that, to be honest with you. I told one other party that we would check on that, and if we can, if it is legally allowed, we can put that in an addendum and send that out. Make a note of that. Would you, Steve, if we check on that? Does not?
On our building project.
Well, as I say, we will ask the question. I do not know the answer, but we will ask the question. And if you do not get it, it means we can't give it out. If we can give a range or a minimum, or I don't know exactly what procedure we do. We will check that out and find out. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Also, a question about some of the building standards. There's no listing in here for specifications about fire-rated material or any provisions in terms of some of the roof structures or enclosures where there might have to be sprinkler heads dropped through. Are we to?
That question came up here over the break, and Dave is checking. I would say to you this: if it's a sprinkler situation, that would be within our building. We're going to have to take care of that. We'll provide that.
There are a couple of extenuating circumstances. They're asked to build a closed-in structure, and according to Dave, the square footage is not covered by sprinkler. And, I mean, it's an involvement with the exhibit fabricator over semi-architectural implications.
We do have to consult our local code official to find out what constitutes threatening areas that could not be sprinkled per the general sprinkler system, i.e. some of your second floor cases that have lids on them on the second floor theater, which will apparently have a roof or a lid on it. We'll have to find out what the ramifications of it are, if they are indeed required to be sprinkled. But what Tom said will probably be on the...
Let's take it off it's not in your package. If there's a bid requirement, if there's a code requirement that we drop sprinklers down into the little theaters or places like that, that's going to be a building problem. I mean, it's tied into the main sprinkler, and our drops, down to that would be something we'd have to do as an ad. You should not calculate that in and cost that.
But we will need to know about coordinating that with, if it has to be done.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean if you were the winning bidder?
Right.
Yeah. At this point, I'm saying take it off the table. It's our problem. Obviously, it would be a matter that would be coordinated with the sprinkler design and installation with you at a later date if you're the bidder. Yes, sir.
Okay. Using fire-rated structural materials for any of the platforms or any of the risers, the theater areas?
We're not using fire-rated plywood or anything like that in the construction.
Okay.
There was actually a spec in your manual about patching that said that the plywood had to be fire rated. It may be something you want to publish as an addendum because it would have a dramatic effect on the price.
Okay, well noted. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Another question, he said the aisleways were held to a minimum as you walk through right now, so make sure things...
They're ADA compliant.
Okay, can you tell me what that minimum is you held to? Give us an idea.
The goal I went for was where there are parallel sides, it's held to 5 feet. And where there are pinch points, it can come down to like 4. And a pinch point is a point against a point. You know what I mean? Where you pass through the squeeze very shortly, so it's not so critical.
Go ahead. Another question with the general contractor. What is his substantial completion date set at?
His substantial completion date is, it's the exact wording, October 4th is substantial. The total completion date, October 31.
There's always a little confusion in these projects with the prevailing wage. I'm not familiar with the Beacon Davis reference that you use, but typically a lot of our craftsmen aren't covered in normal building circumstances. That is to say, scenic artists, props craftsmen, some of those people, it's tough to find a...
My understanding is that if anybody works within the building, they have to be paid the prevailing wages as published in the spec list. If they work outside the grounds, that's not covered.
Understood. What I'm saying is the classification they work under isn't covered in most spec books.
We can get you in charge of Pat Richards, who's the prevailing wage coordinator for Clark County, and she can help you with the clarification.
Okay.
I will be the first to admit the federal prevailing wage is really broad. It's like, it doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you Pat Richards' number, and she can help you identify it, because she's the one that works with those folks.
I can tell you as an aside to that came up very early when the determination was made that it really doesn't affect people who work in your shop or subs to you, but when they're on site, they are responsible. But in so doing, I went all the way through to the representative's office of Labor Department in Chicago, and I asked the gentleman the question. There was a long pause at the end, and he said, I've never had that question asked of me. And that had to do with model builders and projects such as this, exhibition builders. So I've never had that question. He's talking back. I never heard from him, so after about a month I called him back, and he said, I was wishing you wouldn't call me back. he said basically, it's not something that's covered outside the scope. When you're off-site, on-site, if it's a person who's going to be doing carpentry work, obviously that. But Pat Richards would be the one to make the final call on that. I mean, she's very knowledgeable about it. But I think you're just going to have to put them categorically set up as to electricians or carpenters or something like that. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
A couple more questions. Is there an exact list of graphics specified and will be
There's a whole
provided?
graphics package, yes.
Okay.
Do they have, where are they?
That has not been sent to me.
That's the big package, or
That's the package, Virginia's got the final one. She's got the master. The master is one of the one go.
So that's a separate bid altogether.
No, this is the graphics and text for the museum.
Okay. Is there a listing of the graphics that illustrates that this mural is 10 feet tall, 30 feet wide? And okay. And that list is available? We'll come out and addendum?
It's in the graphics package.
The question is, how does he bid on it? How does he get the data to bid on it?
Question before is, we got to mail out this many packages, or is that what we're going to do?
How do we get our hands on it?
Is there just a listing, like a condensed version of what I'm looking at there? Or?
No, there is not. There is not. It's on each graphic as you go through. It's scaled and cropped.
We are going to need this.
Yes.
Okay, is that reproducible in that form?
It affects square, if nothing else, just square inches in photos. So here, square feet in a square yard.
How quickly can we get that reproduced?
I'm going to say that's a major portion to go through and get that quoted.
Steve, didn't you have a couple of those reproduced at one time?
We've done,
That's that major package. I think
the major package we haven't done other than a couple of copies for you and me.
Yeah. Where'd you get that done?
We've got 11 different people here that have different times.
We could have it reproduced in 3 or 4 days probably, without major expense. I didn't think they wanted that information to read.
If I may, a lot of times what they give us is simply a list, C-print, Duratrans, and the rough size and the quantity. That's usually enough for us to...
And if there's any special manipulation we need to do to the artwork.
Yeah. It doesn't have to happen.
Can that be done more quickly?
Somebody can go through here and copy the so many wide and so many high figures. You got to go to the drawings.
Well, you need to know where they're mounting, what they're mounting on. I mean, it's
substrates.
a lot
Well,
of...
let's do this. All right, with the points well taken, we will. Would you get with Steve immediately today, and let's get that reproduced and out to the people who are here today? I don't think we have any choice. We need to do it. You probably have one more question for me.
I got a couple more here. We've got a brief list of some of the special artifacts that need to be addressed. Is there a complete list of all the artifacts that we can also have a copy of as well?
Yep.
And that can also be a condensed listing.
That is the condensed now.
Okay, we will. Steve, can we make notes of that so we get that done and get that out immediately? Okay, you got one more?
It is stated in here the hours of operation that we can be on site is between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Will those be extended if we need to work overtime?
Yes, we can make that accommodation.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I heard overheard some conversation about coordinating with conservation staff and for mounting some of the larger artifacts. Can we elaborate a little bit on that as to what our level of effort might be? For the smaller things, I understand that we're making mounts and we're mounting, but for some of the larger things, scope of responsibility delineation would be helpful.
Dave or Floyd? No?
I'm sorry.
Who wants to take that question? Floyd?
Virginia can probably talk about the conservatories more than I. She's been working directly with
We have 2 conservation laboratories that we're working with. One is working on textiles, so the Civil War tent on the 2nd floor is coming, actually will probably come to our facility, and then the 2 mounters will come and work with us and with you on getting that tent in place. It has a special mount because it's so very delicate that they want to do an interior support system to it so that it can stand. It actually looks like a tent, so it stands, but it doesn't. The weight of the textile itself isn't a problem, and so I don't know what that support system is going to look like, so they're going to have to be with us. The other thing that they're working working on is a coverlet, which also is on the second floor, and will be on a modified S-mount. So it's flat, and so the textile is completely supported. That's the 1774 bedrock that you'll get in the list. And again, because it's so delicate, we want to have it completely supported to make sure that the artifact itself is maintained in good condition. So they will be working with whoever is the successful bidder, as well as with me. We've got to coordinate them coming when it's time to mount those. Then the other one would be the constable wagon. That right now is out at the conservators, and again, I'm not sure whether they're going to ship that back early, and then the two of them come and work on the installation. The concern for that is, as you know, the constable has the hoops that would normally hold the cover. What they're going to do is hide some supports around those hoops to take the weight of the new cover. We don't
responsibility would be if, for example, the Conestoga wagon, the Civil War tent, and the special piece of textile is being mounted by your conservator.
Mounted and supported are two different things.
Okay.
For one of the better words, an armature.
Okay.
There'll be a frame inside the tent. It'll be padded and supported and everything, and then they bring it in and it's installed on the floor.
Yeah.
And the same with the blankets, supported and so forth, and then it's installed.
Right, so really it's more a question of coordination.
Right.
That it really is working on the installation, than being responsible for the installation. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fine line, and the point that needs to be discerned.
As far as the other artifacts that they're not going to conserve, for us, historical sites, staff is continuing those ready to see them.
Great.
Right, and those we can talk about, what kind of schedule, because it's going to be at least August before those would be ready, for the first ones would be ready to go on actual mounts. We can talk about that.
Okay. A site question, is there a provision for spotting a trailer on site for an extended period of time?
That can be done. We have towards the tail end of the project, obviously there will be outside work done as they take the parking lot from what its condition is today and put in landscaping and all that. But it's a pretty good sized area, and I would say to you that we could make those accommodations probably without any problem if that becomes an issue. Yes.
Another question here. In the specifications here, usually most of the bid documents, there are sections that are AIA specs that are like $5,000 for metalwork, $6,000 for carpentry work and glazing, paint finishes. Those specs are not included in my manual. And
the actual documents for the construction of the exhibition were done graphically, and so we cannot break it out into the CSI format that you're thinking of. So what you need to do is look at the drawings that were produced by Northern Museum, and we look at that as what you're providing. Like, it'll tell you what's wood and what kind of wood and things like this, but we didn't go into like 4,000-pound concrete or certain poundage of steel or anything like that, because it's not structural. It's not a building.
in terms of some other things related to the wood, different types of finishes are, can we finish on site? All the finishing needs to be done in a shop. Are we looking at using waterborne finishes, other types of conservation materials?
Can you answer that, Dave?
I think some of the considerations you'll have are the interior finishes of cases where we have paint. And so the paint will have to be non-gas, has to be compatible with the condition of the case itself.
So with your plywood and everything else then?
And exactly. So there has to be a sealing of the wood so it doesn't give out the malodor. Those are some of the things having to do with color. There are high pressure laminates spec in here. I'm trying to think what else would affect that. We'll have the artifact list to you this afternoon. The graphics package will have to be sent. we have got a full, color specs and everything. We got a sample. I can't think of anything else to do.
Does that answer your question? Okay. With that, then we'll adjourn, and you can leave whatever you want here. We'll make sure the room's covered while you're gone. We'll be going right out the main lobby, across the street. Be careful crossing the street. We don't want to lose any of our designers. So everybody knows where we're going and the routine to get there. Besides being issued hard hats, it is mandatory that everyone signs a visitor's law. So the first stop on our tour will be the trunk of my car, which is parked right next to the main entrance right across the street. We'll issue the hard hats there, and I have the visitor's law there. We're going to ask that we break into 2 groups. So I would suggest that if you have several people representing your company, you split your group into one of each of the groups. We're not going to count heads, but we would like to try to make the groups as equal as possible, size-wise. Also, I may be I couldn't get a real good handle on how many people are actually taking the tour. I may be a little light on hard hats. So if anybody happens to have one in the trunk of their car, it would be helpful if you wear your own hard hat. We'll be going straight out the lobby door, across the street, and I'm parked. There's a parking area to the left of the building, and that's where we'll be.
You're parked
Come back here afterwards. And
You're parked outside the tent room. What's your car look like? Oh, I see.
How about, we got any more HHs? Any more hard hats? They're coming. The newspaper didn't catch that.
I can barely. I'd stand like right on the dead.
Yeah, what I mean, they should come and catch that.
I've been up, but not since they put the.
Good.
I've not been outside. You got
Without the hard hats, wait out here. So,
Beams go across here. Dave, this is the what? The interactive, the store. Someone asked that. Where's the gift shop? And this is the discovery area. Howdy. That hallway is how you pass along here, just to give you some idea. We normally wouldn't go this way. Take my sunglasses off if it help. Just realized why it was so damn dark. Yeah. This area from that wall to this wall here, it defines the lobby. I don't remember if we have access, probably emergency access that way.
No, it's still public access.
So you got two access or 2 entrances. There's the main parking lot on that side.
Just for general knowledge, the street area on this side is also being revamped and put into a Victoria atmosphere street. We have the city turned that street over to us, so that's a privately owned street now. And that will be antique lighting, brick pavers, be used for a gathering area.
What is going to be the relationship to the retirement home that's here? Will it stay the same?
To their parking lot will be maintained for them, other than that.
So a little cross traffic. They keep their parking lot.
Right.
The public doesn't park in their lot.
It's pretty much participants in the building.
Okay.
Park there. And during activities, it'll be blocked off. We'll coordinate with them.
When you enter this space with the reception desk on your right, there's a large glass wall here through which you can look right into here, but you can't get in here. Just so you know. Visually, Dave, where's this top of this come to? Dave, where's the top of this? Dave,
excuse me, what?
One conversation at a time.
Yep.
Where's the top of this going to be? Right where the underside of this is?
11'2".
There's 8 feet right there. So, where's
it's
something on where the bottom of that stripe is?
To the underside of the keystone of the
Okay.
limestone there, maybe.
So there'll still be good visual access into here.
It's going to read as just big glass.
And the windmill sits over there.
Triangular opening. You come up to the landing here, last landing up to the second floor, and right about here is where your windmill is.
It's a little further.
Clear up into the second floor.
The arrival is right there onto the second floor. So we go back over here where you've come through this door. There are doors into this space. Double acting? Double acting?
To kind of pick up these deviations. Nothing to kind of the building from a surveyor's standpoint, from that end to that end drops 3 feet, and it's, 100 years ago that was totally fine. So it's kind of not perceivable, but if you were a poor level floor, it's fill up pretty quick down there. So as best we can, we're going to treat it enough to put a floor finish. Then to add as a vapor barrier, we're going to put a sheet goods down over it, welded seam. And then on top of that will be the carpet tile finish.
I don't see any floor pockets yet. Are they to come, or floor pockets for electric?
Per the design, which is, it's going to be an under-carpet system, flat wire, which will run underneath the carpet tile. And that's why we use tile, essentially, to pull up as you need after the fact.
Comes in from the perimeter. That's the new fake wall that comes in.
Like, and so, as far as for data and for electric power as well,
You can do both. They make flat wire, coaxial conduit.
the electrical's being stubbed off at junction boxes behind the false wall, which is when you start to see they're starting to mask off the windows.
Dave, we requested early on there would be plywood behind the drywall on these walls. Is that correct still?
That is actually adjusted from a value engineering standpoint. We are not going to have an acre of plywood as we originally envisioned.
Is that what it amounted to?
Possibly. So the burden is on us to take the exhibit drawings as closely as we can and to provide blocking between studs if we need it as much as we think we can get away with. We really wanted to, but you'll see on the second floor we get into 30-foot walls. It was really getting to be.
We were trying to provide.
You could use MDF or beaver board.
Whatever, but they couldn't afford it.
It was a big one.
It's kind of standard in galleries now to do it, and then you just patch the wall and it doesn't come apart. It's really nice.
Now, pulling from the power supply, though, from those walls into the interior, sure, that's part of our contract? Flat wire under the carpet?
For the flat wire, yes.
The carpet as well? It's all part of
No,
our...
the carpet is done by the general contractor.
But the flat wiring is our contract?
Right, where you need it, where you need the power across to the floor.
Okay.
There's also a power grid in the ceiling.
So, all right, so you're thinking the carpet will be down when we get here?
No.
I think last.
Yeah.
Well,
the sequence would be we put in the exhibits, full
Well, we've had discussions with our GC as to when he wants to install the carpet, which ideally it would be after the fact when you have your stuff in place. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to extend his contract out that far into the future, that he's still waiting for this to be in place before he can leave and get his retainage. So as best we could, we gave him the same set of drawings you have, and we're essentially going to chalk off the space. He'll give you some play as far as extending the carpet underneath the exhibit and then leaving it bare. We chopped out probably close to 2,000 square feet worth of carpet doing it that way.
It seems that begs the question, they cannot glue the carpet down. They can glue it down where it ends, just so they won't migrate, but they've got to be dry.
We'll probably have somebody under contract here that coordination can begin as to where we can start slotting electrical under carpet lines so that maybe we don't glue that swatch down right away. Or we make it so it is easily removable.
There's still a possibility.
To be done with the
You can see the power up in the ceiling. They also cut down the number that we had. I had them every, 8 feet?
We don't really anticipate power drops.
Well, where it's needed, if you could get to the central wall and then work through the platform to do something rather than coming across the floor, it might be cheaper.
Some of the walls that are down here on the first floor, in relation to the ceiling, how high do they come?
I can't tell you. They're
walls
under.
on this level. These?
No, that central wall.
The center walls.
I have to look at the drawings. I can't say if it meets the top of this ceiling or not.
It didn't butt up to the wall, though, did it?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I can't tell you, and the reason I can't is this whole ceiling configuration here was not, it wasn't available. It was ductwork and all kinds of crazy stuff. So.
Because we got perimeter supply and return, and I don't think we could block it that well.
Yeah, I don't think we want to seal it to the ceiling. I don't think the drawing takes it that far up
Now the
anyway.
wall is so
It's got enough.
non-linear that I think it'll be pretty well supported just by itself. You
It
don't need a lot
undulates,
of
tries to make strength of it.
And everything you see, from our end, we're providing a black box shell. All through this space will be painted out black as well.
Yeah, it's truly a black box.
And the blade headers, they don't connect on the corners, correct? Because they fasten around there.
What's a blade header?
Well, the header for the graphics.
You're talking about the timeline.
The timeline.
Okay, what you saw in the model is not the way. If you had a set of drawings, you could see.
They're going to hang straight, but do they touch on the corners? Where they?
Yeah. They touch.
That is a.
Yeah,
that header does connect. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is a trough, and it does contain the fiber optic lighting and all that. Yeah. Dave, are these going to get a sheathing?
The columns?
Good. Yeah, I mean, it says something about the structure that was here. Yeah.
Well, this is the beginning of the first floor, which I think, as you envision, kind of walks.
Yeah, the flow is on that side, of course. And this is the comeback, and then the stairs start. Well, that's going to get cut away, so probably about here is where the stairs start. Did you ever resolve with the code people about the distance at the toe of the ramps, the stairs? Remember there was a question drawn about the toe of the stairs and the first obstruction? You guys?
This stairs?
Yeah.
We had one, we lopped off the one edge, the little pointy.
Oh, that thing is stuck out. Okay.
We're
Let's
leaving
go.
one. The one that envelops kind of where that column meets the floor is where the stairs start to go up.
Okay. You just modified
One on the
it
other
now.
side, yeah, we kind of.
That's all right. That'll work. Yeah, there was a big thing that went around at the bottom of the stairs, the very bottom.
Right.
That's been changed. Was to cover the windows down here. And all of the utility work that has to go on behind, they did what they said they never could do. They cut, didn't see you. They cut through these giant support columns that hold up the whole building. And I don't know how they did it, but it's wonderful. Otherwise, we'd have had to have even more access doors. But you can look through here and see what a guy's got to squeeze by to get by the duct. It goes down that way. Suck it in.
Code official, and a lot of it, we really had verbal approval from him on a lot of things. Can we get by with this? Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that
Yeah.
conversation.
Question I want to make sure of. In building out on these walls that aren't necessarily exact, all of our dimensions will have to be all verified to make sure we maintain all the islands.
Right. We have been fighting over inches with the architects because they had
Everything will have to be field verified.
Right. Yeah. Because
Now the base plant you did the takeoff on, it's pretty close. I mean,
yeah, pretty close means
within
6 inches or pretty close.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty close. Columns are pretty much right where we set.
Yeah, the columns are real critical.
But the key is you're really honestly going to have to build around what you're found here. The drawings are always.
Yeah, I mean, it just you can't make it so accurate at the stages we work. We measured everything as best we could.
I mean, I've been hearing kind of from these mechanical guys, hey, we need.
Yeah, just stop eating
No, we can't do that. We can't eat into their space. They'll have a fit. So we've crushed ductwork behind there the best we can.
Yes.
The trick will be trying to repair a window after they've sheathed the walls.
Yeah, they put duct right over windows. They can't get to the window. This is the entryway for bringing equipment in. This was the bravest move of all. One of the main support columns. Cut a big hole through it and put a lintel across.
This one.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, we'll go back and see that. Yeah, Dave, I want to ask you, face in here. Check the bottom, check the pump. You turned off the pump. Break runs through the building. So we go.
We chose about the worst place possible for a freight elevator because it's right over the existing aquifer, so it's going to continue to flood. And they're dying to get it finished so they can start installing the sump pump, because right now they pump it to the street and it runs nonstop. Those are the limitations of the doors to get in the building. The elevator floor height is only 7 feet.
With the hoops on. No, with the hoops down.
No, I can't tell you, it's way longer than an automobile.
Okay.
Height is kind of... How did we get the car through those doors? Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that's taking fenders off, that's taking sideboards off. They can get it through the opening. Come through the door. Tell you what, if push came to shove, I mean, that's take that out, start over, pull it in, put it back. I'd investigate doing something utilitarian for the load-in, just because there's going to be so much stuff. It looks like that whole... It could just be plywood for us, you know.
Okay.
Actually, no, that is being replaced. I think we are putting one doors. Those right now are a pair of 3 doors. I think we're going to like a pair of 4 doors, I think. It's going to widen it by another foot and a half.
So it'll go, okay, more like 8.
Right. The side lights are history. I think we're going with wider doors. I'll check my drawing.
Okay, so it's like a car dealership where they have those really wide doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I will check to see what it is exactly width-wise.
Trying to think. Oh, in the other room, there appeared this strange little track that looks like a tray that you lay stuff in. That thing up there.
Wiring.
Yeah.
It is security cable.
We were talking about that yesterday. I'm just bringing it up to repeat it.
I confirm that.
The security cabling
Right.
couldn't be used for anything else.
I would hate to use it as any sort of support system. For
I
something
wonder
else.
about crossover.
Yeah.
You know, if you
That's
use,
possible.
probably not a good idea.
I don't know what capacity they built yet.
You know, like the electronic stuff laying next to regular. I know the AV guys always said, you know, you get the read between the two.
It's not like
Yeah.
I just wonder about this audiovisual in general question. You thinking about local control for all of the devices or a central control room?
What do you mean local control?
Well, in other words, you know, the switching and the amps and then the CPUs or whatever that are driving screens.
Uh-huh.
Central AV control room, or
Yeah, where
will they all be local?
The building is being, it has a localized central lighting control system, and that's operated off of the receptionist here at the desk.
Isn't that in the front lobby?
Yeah, that's woven into the software as part of her PC. She can turn lights on or off in big banks throughout the building.
But the point is really good about a central point to control all the AV stuff where you switch it on or it's,
Yeah, well, I mean, just for, it's fun.
And it needs to be dedicated and separate and nobody messing with it.
There are potential places where a panel board could be put.
Let's look at a suggestion so at least we can make a lot of that equipment can be back on. So you just have a rack somewhere.
It's usually good, then one person can go there, turn it all on and off. That's actually, we've got places allocated in the building for the general building systems being funneled into one point.
Bill says he's got a spot.
quite a while. No, that way when they come out prior to construction.
Yeah. How you doing? Hey, y'all making good, thanks.
Left.
They're doing a heck of a job. There's that one drop down, about knee height. Your knee's taller than mine. So come off the elevator.
That's the military area?
We're in the military here.
Oh, this is, okay.
Yeah.
The drop down.